In the final decades of the 1800s, a small town grew up on the east side of the Bighorn River at the mouth of Owl Creek, about 6 miles north of the current town of Thermopolis, Wyoming. It was named Andersonville after 3 Anderson brothers, Charles, Edward, and Lyman, who had moved west from Illinois and built cabins along the river there. For a few years at the end of the 1800s, another small community sprang up just across the river from Andersonville, and this was the Old Town, which later moved down to the Hot Springs area and became Thermopolis. And before long, several other buildings were constructed, including a livery, schoolhouse, blacksmith shop, jail, and saloon. The buildings were built from sturdy logs from the huge cottonwood trees growing along the river. The logs were mostly held together with wooden pegs instead of nails, and the roofs were made of logs covered with sod and dirt. Located at a Bridger Trail crossing, it was natural for the new town to offer services to travelers and new settlers. Brother Ed Anderson built a long 5-room building that was used for dances, a saloon, and a boarding house. Ed was considered a little on the shady side, and the brothers were known to host outlaws and rustlers. Andersonville was known as a place where outlaws could relax, since the river was the boundary between Fremont County on the west and Johnson County on the east. Members of the Hole in the Wall gang, led by outlaws Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, were known to hang out in Andersonville, either at Ed Anderson's saloon, the Anderson Ranch, or at Henry Sherrard's saloon, and far from the county seat and the county sheriff. Andersonville thrived until the early 1900s. When the federal government purchased the 10 square miles of land around the nearby hot springs in 1897, Andersonville's neighbor Old Town moved down the road to the hot springs area and became the town of Thermopolis. Thermopolis grew quickly, and Andersonville declined. In the early 1950s, Earl Varney of Worland got permission from the family to dismantle the cabin, and he moved all the pieces to a lumberyard in Worland. It was stored there until it was moved to the Pioneer Museum in Thermopolis, where it was fully restored and furnished in the early 1980s. This cabin is now on display on the lower level of the Hot Springs County Museum in Thermopolis. Today, all that remains of Andersonville is the blacksmith shop building and the reconstructed Lyman Anderson cabin located at the History Museum. Be sure to stop by the museum and see this important artifact of Hot Springs County history.